to the October 16th edition of the PFF Forecast. I'm George. I'm joined by Brad, and we're going to kick it off with Ben Brown. We're going to recap I don't know that I would call it exhilarating week 6, but we did have a conference championship preview, which was great. We'll talk about Bucks Chiefs, Allen versus Mahomes, a little bit of the two New York teams, Jets and Giants, which one, if either, is for real. Rodgers and Brady both struggling a lot. We're going to preview Monday Night Football, give you some good bets there, and then we're going to, of course, guess the Week 7 lines. Let's rock. My question to both of you is, how are you guys celebrating the New York Jets Super Bowl champion season? Is this something that you guys were prepared for? Are you ready for it?
I mean, anytime the Green Bay Packers can lose by multiple scores at home to the New York Jets, I'm in good spirits, even though it probably shows also how bad the Chicago Bears are that they got blown out by a bad Packers team.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely with Brad on this. We've bonded over this fact before, but anytime the Packers, kind of show their true colors, I would say it's always a great week. But I mean, my Jets playoff tickets looking really well right now. I'm on the bandwagon. I don't know if either of you two guys are, but I'm excited for the Jets Jets coming up after this performance and last week's performance, I would say.
Yeah, the over 5.5 tickets look very, very good. We'll get to the Jets and the Giants here in a second, but let's start with this. How did each of your guys' betting days go? I will save mine for last. Brad, how did you do today?
Yeah, so from last Sunday, we all liked the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe didn't deserve that backdoor cover, but we got it, so that was wonderful. And then the New York Giants, they were within 5 points. I want to say the entire game. Maybe we're down a touchdown for a very brief period of time, maybe 17-10, but I think looked like the right bet the entire time. So won those two. And then Kansas City, look, I took the money line. I fell for the trap. They did cover their teaser leg, which I'm sure we'll get into later, talking about Brady. They came up short, but I still don't really regret playing them as a plus money, dog at home.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I mean, the Bengals were definitely my biggest spot. I did get a little on them in game as well, so that worked out well. I did have the Jets with the points. Basically, I didn't go, with our guy Judah and take them on the money line like he suggested. So maybe missed out on a little bit of that. But yeah, biggest loser, I would say, definitely Kansas City Chiefs. I think they were right there at the end. I did expect some sort of Mahomes type magic on that last drive, and we did not get that whatsoever. So that was definitely my one down spot. I did actually try the PFF player prop tool strategy where I bet basically I want to say close to 60 different reception prop unders throughout the entire week. And I basically went slightly above break even. I think through the first slate I had bet through the first main slate of games, I had bet 40 player props on receptions. Wow. And I went I went 21-19 for plus 0.42 units or something like that. So it was a lot of work for a little pay, but I definitely think it's something I'm going to try again here next week.
The Bucks Chiefs teaser was my biggest L. I also took the Bucks in the Super Contest. They were one of the 5 consensus picks in the Circa Millions. Sorry, my bad there. Circa Millions contest, which for any members of the printing press that don't know what that is, you pick 5 games every single week against the spread. It's $1,000 buy-in. A lot of sharp players that go and play that tournament. That was a bad one for me. But on the plus side of things, the Atlanta Falcons continue to be. I think that was the one that we didn't talk about last week that I ended up betting. Had them in the Circa Millions as well. The Giants actually, I think, were one of the bigger victories for me this week. I had the Jets as well, but the Giants had slightly more on. And we talked about this last Sunday where that line just didn't make a lot of sense. There are a lot of teams in the NFL right now who are just they're average. I mean, that's like the best way to put it, I think. And when they're average and you're at home and you're getting 5.5, 6 points, you should probably take it. I think that's the thing to take away from that. But let's talk a little bit about the Bucs and the Chiefs, because it was a very interesting game. I'll just say my big takeaway from that game was I don't think so. People going into the game, there was some talk on Twitter about how can you actually compare Mahomes and Allen. Mahomes has done so much more in his career. He's had so much more success from a team perspective. And you watch that game. I watched that game. And I know that Josh Allen has better receivers right now. That's obvious. But the fear that you used to have about Mahomes, I used to have about Mahomes, I now have about Josh Allen. I mean, he put together a couple of drives in that game. The one that took about 60 seconds at the end of the half where they drove 99 yards. Then at the end of the game to score the touchdown and ultimately put them up 4 and won the game. And the way that he changes the game with his legs is impressive. Right. But now the throws that this dude makes are unbelievable. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, as great as he is not making those throws right now. The Bills, I think cemented themselves as the best team in the NFL, but I don't think it's ridiculous to say right now that Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the NFL. What did you guys make of that game?
Yeah, so you talk about Josh Allen and that particular drive. He was about 8 yards deep in the end zone. It was 3rd down, and he threw an absolute laser, out of his own end zone for the first down to Gabriel Davis before, obviously, a beautiful touchdown pass to Gabriel Davis later in that same drive. I don't think it's crazy to say. I do think, like you said, he's making some of those more spectacular throws right now. But at the end of the day, we also, I think, kind of nailed the conversation of, you asked me and Kevin Cole a couple of weeks ago, who would you rather face in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs or the Bills, and why? The Bills dropped 8 guys into coverage, like a third of their plays today. They've been doing it like 5% of plays before today, and they were able to get home with 3 and 4 rushers, and that is kind of the difference between these two teams right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Chris Jones kind of flashed a little bit at certain points in time, but I think, from top to bottom, the Bills have a much better roster outside of the quarterback position. I don't think it's crazy to say that Josh Allen, right now is playing like the best quarterback in the NFL. But if I was choosing between these two guys, I still think I would probably lean to Patrick Mahomes' direction. I just think the issue, the thing for me is like, they're kind of doing it in different ways, right? And I do think, Josh Allen is making some of these wow type throws. Patrick is like more forced to kind of like throw his guys open or almost like fit it into like tighter windows in certain situations, which is what he tried to do, kind of on that game sealing interception. But I still think when it's all said and done, like I was kind of impressed with, at least the secondary receiving options that the Chiefs brought forth today. I do think Juju Smith-Schuster flashed a little bit today, had the huge yards after the catch touchdown run. I think, those are the pieces that, if Kansas City is actually going to compete with Buffalo, in this AFC Conference Championship game, which we're all kind of expecting right now, I think, it's going to have to be a little bit more Juju Smith-Schuster. It's going to have to be, probably Sky more so than Mecole Hardman. So I do think developing those guys and getting them more accustomed to, what Patrick Mahomes is actually going to do is eventually going to help them be more successful long-term. So I don't think they're the same right now, but I do think that, Mahomes and the Chiefs can definitely get to the level that the Bills are going to play at when they actually need to here at the end of the season.
See, I actually don't know that I feel that way. Juju Smith-Schuster made some nice plays in this game. Yeah. Really did. It was, I think, the first time this season, like, oh, he's alive at least.
Right.
But if Juju Smith-Schuster is your most explosive wide receiver, you have some problems. And you look on the other side of the ball and you have Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, each of whom are in different leagues than the receivers on the Chiefs side of things. That worries me, especially when you aren't playing at home. And I mean, the road through the AFC is probably going to go through Buffalo. So, I'll add just one more thing before I ask you guys this question. The gap in coaching to me is also noticeable. So the Chiefs are up 3. They get the ball back. I want to say there's about 6-7 minutes left in the game. It was obvious, at least to me, I'm sure to you guys as well, they needed to score a touchdown. A field goal to go up 6, you're going to lose by 1. You don't score, you're going to lose the game. And Andy Reid called plays that left a lot to be desired. They did not have the urgency. They did not have the ability to go out and just put a drive together and go score a touchdown. The Bills, of course, do have that ability. They go score a touchdown, they win that game. Sean McDermott, I think Nick Sirianni to a certain extent are kind of playing as if they have everything to prove. I don't know that I see that in Kansas City. So I think that's a gap as well. Let's say we end up AFC Championship game, Bills at home against the Chiefs. What's the spread of that game? What should the spread of that game be?
Yeah, I would first say I think you nailed it. I mean, Sean McDermott going for a 4th and 1 on his own 33-yard line. Andy Reid's not doing that. I mean, he just isn't. And also the drive you're mentioning, it was 2 runs off left tackle to Jerick McKinnon on this, like on 1st down and 2nd and 8, I think it was. Right. It's like you're not, like you said, we all sat there knowing this is not gonna, win in the football game. The spread right now in Buffalo, I mean, considering they were 2.5-point favorites, 2-point favorites in Kansas City and won the game and are getting healthier. I mean, I think they're laying 4.5 points, in Buffalo.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree. I do think, with Tre'Davious White back in the fold, a much healthier Jordan Poyer, especially, if they actually do what we are expecting them to do, for the rest of the season, I do think, -4.5 makes a lot of sense. It could even go up to -5. I don't think we're going to see that high of a spread, given that it's a playoff game, winner go home type environment with Patrick Mahomes on the other side. But I could see a case to be made at -5, but I do think we probably settle in, -4, -4.5 when by the time we end up getting there, I would say.
Yeah, and we're all going to be on the Chiefs.
Right. I mean, no doubt about it.
We're all going to be on the Chiefs. I could see 4.5. I could see it all the way out to 4.5. I have a hard time getting it past 4. I think, 3.5, 4. At that point, the Chiefs will have made it that far. You'd expect maybe Sky Moore to have developed a little bit more. But there's a noticeable difference. And the last thing that I'll say, I think that I took away from this game, the way that the Bills have built their team, I don't think can be estimated, not is the wrong word, but not talked about. In comparison, I think, to the Chiefs, who have done some good things from a team building perspective. But let's be really honest here. They drafted Patrick Mahomes. Okay, that's the team building move that the Chiefs have made that was amazing. They had Andy Reid. He's a generational talent as an offensive coordinator. They had Travis Kelce. He's amazing. And yes, the way that they were able to unload Tyreek Hill, get a bunch of players back, that's great. Okay. But let's think about some of the moves. I mean, the pass rusher that the Chiefs brought in was Frank Clark. Okay. The Bills went out this year and brought in Von Miller. Von Miller, I don't think he lost a pass rush rep against Andrew Wiley. I mean, he was the game sealing interception. He had pressure. There's so many big plays where he either got a sack or was in there in 2 seconds or less. And I mean, that is a game changing, season changing, potentially Super Bowl changing move that they've made. Not to mention, I mean, the Stephon Diggs move, drafting Gabriel Davis, the way that they've created a defensive line that doesn't have to blitz. It really, really is impressive. But it wouldn't be surprising if we look back on this year and the last 2 years and go, the key move for the past 2 Super Bowl champions has been picking up Von Miller, which kudos to Von Miller.
I mean, you didn't even mention the biggest play that he had in the game either. So it was after, so the Chiefs kicked the field goal or whatever. Bills got the ball back and did go 3-and-out. And then the Chiefs actually did get the ball back. And Von Miller did have that 3rd and, I think it was like 3rd and 7 sack or something like that. 3rd and 6 sack after the Jerick McKinnon run. And that was, I would say kind of the big play where they didn't actually get the ball back. And then Bills got the ball back and ended up going up scoring. And that was, for the most part, the game was already over at that point. But yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. And I think that the fear for, any Chiefs fan at this point in time is like, not only are they going to have the front four if they play again, but the secondary situation is going to be so much better. That was kind of the weak link for the reason why I thought the Chiefs were the correct side in this particular matchup. That was, didn't really come to fruition, mainly because I thought the pass rush was so successful for the Buffalo Bills today.
Yeah, I have to preface every time I say stuff like this. Look, every team can do what they want to, but I would tell you that the difference between the Chiefs and Bills and how they've constructed their rosters is why one team extended Stephon Diggs this offseason and one team traded away Tyreek Hill this offseason. Because, even Orlando Brown, I thought he was bad in this game. I know he had a hold and a false start, at least those two, maybe had a third penalty, but also just wasn't really impressive in the game, both as a run blocker or a pass protector. But, the Bills, starting back after 2018, which also they deserve credit because they made the playoffs in 2017. They had that awful game against the Jaguars where Blake Bortles went to the AFC Championship game after winning 9-6 in the first round. And the new regime still came in and said, I don't care. We're not chasing this playoff appearance. This is a bad football team. Let's tear this thing down to the studs and build it back up. They led the NFL in dead cap the following year. They got rid of Marcel Darius and all these players. They had like $65 or $68 million in dead cap. It was like a record at the time. And they've just consistently now built to the draft. They have made some trade-ups. Obviously, Josh Allen was a good one. Tremaine Edmonds, Cody Ford, bad ones, but nevertheless. And then they've been very early on every extension. Tre'Davious White, Deion Dawkins, Matt Milano, all their best players. They get deals done early. Josh Allen is making $43 million a year for 6 years now. That's going to be, guys are making 50 already. So they've been so sharp in their roster construction. Shout out Jason Fitzgerald over the cap, said it might be the best rebuild ever. Like that's how good and impressive they've been. And I agree with that statement from him 100%.
Yeah, it has been very, very impressive. By the way, someone in the chat, Tony, said, do you guys even know how spreads work? It'll be 6.5 at least in the AFC Championship. I think the challenge there, Tony, is that 3 is worth a lot. 6 is also worth a lot. And the idea that one of these teams blows the other out, I think is going to be the challenge. That's why I think we're saying 4.5 is as far as it would get out to. But if it's 6.5, then I will be betting the Chiefs.
Definitely.
Also, I think people still think home field's worth a field goal. Tony, home field advantage is no longer worth a field goal, about half of that now. So
and it's, not all numbers are created equal, right? Yeah. So crossing 3 is a big one, right? 9% of games landing on 3. So it's different than crossing, 4 or 5. And I think that's why we have it in the 4.5 range. Let's move to maybe the 2 biggest surprises so far this year, which are the Giants and the Jets, both of whom the Jets could have been at the top, I believe, of the division if the Bills had lost. But the Giants with another impressive win today, the Jets again with an impressive win as well. So everyone gets very excited about these teams. They have not been good for a while. They have relatively new or brand new regimes, youngish quarterbacks, bunch of young players. Everyone wants to get very excited about them. I'm going to ask you guys, which one is more for real? If you had to bet on one, like actually being something, making something of this start, either this year or going forward, who is it and why?
So this is kind of a complicated answer. I think I believe the Jets more this season. But I actually think going forward, if the Giants can figure out quarterback, which obviously is a massive if, we still have not really seen Kayvon Thibodeau. Kadarius Toney barely plays. Wan'Dale Robinson made an impact today, was a good player. Like, they still have so much capital and everything going forward. They haven't really had kind of their spending spree yet, whereas this Jets roster is kind of what they're going to be. Of course, they're going to pick some more guys. They're going to, sign some more players, but they've spent a lot the last couple off seasons now. They've had their, flush of picks and all from all their trades and Jamal Adams and all that. So I think the Jets could maybe, go above 500 this year and maybe probably not be a wild card, but maybe threaten a wild card. But the Giants long term with this coaching staff, and if they maybe figure out quarterback, get some growth from their young early top 10 picks, I think they could be like a really good team in a couple of years.
Yeah, so the thing with the Giants, and you kind of touched on it right away for me, is like they've done it this year in such unsustainable ways that I don't know if it's actually all that predictive, going forward, not only in this year, but in future years, if that's going to be all that successful, if they don't really have that quarterback position locked in. I do think that, in choosing the 2 teams this year and into the future, I would definitely take the Jets. My one concern with, the Jets specifically in comparison to the Giants is, of course, I do think the AFC is going to be, really good year in and year out, much better than the NFC is going to be. So I think that's the reason why you could maybe cap like the upside of the New York Jets as opposed to the Giants. But I think from the, you know, like a team building perspective and everything else, I do think that the Jets, in my opinion, are much further along given the young pieces that they have in place. And it does kind of, you know, all come down to, you know, Zach Wilson, how well he actually plays. Whereas, you know, I think maybe the Giants have already have the answer to the question on if Daniel Jones should be here for another couple of years. And if that answer is no, you know, then who is that going to actually be? And I do think, you know, without a legitimate, decent quarterback, either from a rookie deal or a veteran guy, I just don't know how sustainable in future years they're going to be offensively.
Well, it's so interesting, right? If they've decided that Daniel Jones isn't going to be the guy, but they have they're in the NFC. The NFC stinks.
Right.
If they have a somewhat successful season this year, let's say they make the playoffs, you know, maybe that makes that conversation about getting rid of Daniel Jones harder, but it also makes it a little bit harder to reload at quarterback. You know, you're going to have to trade up probably to get a guy. You know, that's kind of a crapshoot, but you are reloading at quarterback. Maybe the Jets then are going through the question marks with Zach Wilson. I mean, Zach Wilson, I think, has played better. He's had one, you know, decent game from a grading perspective. We'll see how this week. I mean, let's be honest. This game for the Jets was one on defense, and their defense has been really, really impressive this year. I think as much as we want to talk about some of the young offensive pieces, and you know, everyone on Twitter, obviously, I've got a lot of really good DMs. I'm going to read them, by the way, on Wednesday night. I'm going to amass a nice corpus of DMs from Jet fans and do a reading of the DMs. You know, impressive. They have probably the first or second, maybe third best rookie running back that they were able to draft. That's great. But like Garrett Wilson, tremendous talent at wide receiver. Sauce Gardner, I would say maybe the best pick, you know, in the top 10 so far this year. I would say best corner pick, but like Tariq Woolen looks amazing, and he was obviously 153. So you have all of these incredible pieces on defense, and that defense looks really, really good. The challenge there is that's not something you can particularly bank on.
Right.
And so it really does come down to Zach Wilson versus Daniel Jones, in my opinion. I'm going to take Zach Wilson because he has, you know, we don't know as much about Zach Wilson. He was a better prospect coming out, and he has better weapons around him. You know, I think it's interesting looking at where these offenses have been. If you go over the last 3 weeks on early down pass plays, the Jets are a top 12 team in EPA per play. Interestingly, the Giants are top 5. Now I'm picking that sample because that's when Zach Wilson came back. So that's why I'm using that particular set of weeks. But neither offense makes me super, super excited. I think this season, obviously, the Giants have a better chance to make the playoffs. But long term, the Jets have a much, much better future. I'm super happy for Robert Salah, by the way, because he was catching a lot of heat last year. I think he definitely deserves this. A brother. I'm actually wearing my my American University of Beirut shirt. No one can see it, but that was for a little bit of Robert Salah love here. Let's do this before we get to Monday Night Football. One of the teams that the New York teams beat today were the Green Bay Packers. They look bad. The Los Angeles Rams barely beat a team that completed one pass past the line of scrimmage in the Carolina Panthers. And the Bucs were a 10-point favorite at 1 point this week and lost to a combination of Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky. So potentially the 3 top teams in the NFC all look terrible. Which one is in the biggest world of hurt, and which one has the best chance to actually be good this year?
I'm going to go biggest world of hurt is still the LA Rams. They're the only team that won of these 3 today, but they now lost left tackle Joseph Noteboom, so they're just absolutely decimated along their offensive line. They already were. Sounds like an Achilles could be out for the entire season. There aren't really tackles available, obviously, really ever. But, you know, good luck replacing him at this point. It just gets even more challenging for them. And yeah, they did win, but, you know, they kind of scored late to even cover the -10, -11 of the entire week. Like you said, PJ Walker completed 1 pass beyond the line of scrimmage. Jacob Eason, the Panthers quarterback 5, played some today, which is just about as bad as it gets. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't an impressive win even still. And I still, for some reason, think the Packers and the Bucs can figure it out. The Bucs gave up 5 3rd and 10 pluses on defense today. It's just
so
not
bad.
It's insane. Like, it's just not going to continue to happen. So there's a lot of flukiness going on in that game. Maybe less so Packers, but yeah.
See, I would say I might cheat here, but I don't think I buy into any of them at this point now. I think even if you would have asked me last week, I was like, I do still think the Packers and to a lesser extent the Bucs can put it together to the point where they would be favored in the divisional round of a playoff matchup against, a team that they would face in the NFC. And after this week, I don't think they're going to get there. I don't think any of the 3 teams are going to get there, to be honest with you. I think they all probably should be dogs and are probably going to be on the road if they do actually get to that point. So I think actually asking if any of these 3 teams can legitimately get out of the NFC right now, I think is, based solely on name recognition. And I don't know if there's like too much, outside of that. I do think that, if I was choosing one, the Buccaneers are probably the team that I would think can actually put it together just based on how Tom Brady, has still somewhat performed. Really able to alleviate pressure, needs kind of those wide receivers to win quickly, and they maybe haven't been doing that as well as possible. But I do believe in the secondary a little bit as well. But I think at least as far as like, any one of these 3 teams like getting there because of the quarterback position only it is definitely something that I would say is probably in the past and no longer going to happen here anymore.
The Bucs red zone offense also was
atrocious,
really, really bad. I mean, the Bucs to me are the somewhat easy answer here. I guess the question that I might flip back to you, Ben, is who's the second best? I mean, the Eagles won again. They're 5-0. They've played not the toughest schedule. They got Cooper Rush and all the beauty that was him tonight throwing the ball all over the place. So that you could argue they really haven't, still faced anyone particularly great. But let's assume they're number 1 in the NFC. Who's the second best team in the NFC?
I mean, it's ugly, but I honestly think, when you said earlier that we maybe saw, one conference championship preview coming up in week 6, I actually think we might have seen 2 conference championship previews in week 6.
Wow.
I do think Dallas is going to get there by the time Dak Prescott's back. I do think at some point, that offense is going to be clicking, and I do think that they could easily be the second best team in the NFC. If it's not them, the Vikings are still going to be, chaotic week in and week out. They're still going to let teams that they should probably take care of back into the game. They kind of did that once again with Miami Dolphins, but it seems to be the marriage of Kevin O'Connell and Kirk Cousins has at least been better than expected. Justin Jefferson, I would say, is playing like the best non-quarterback in football still. So I think it's, I would probably choose either the Cowboys or the Vikings over, any one of these 3 teams given their current state.
I strongly agree with your first point and strongly disagree with the second one. I think it's Dallas. I think they showed a lot tonight. In fact, they were able to come back in this game. Yes, Philly kind of started calling a bit of a milquetoast offense as well, but then to be able to come back with those 3 interceptions with Cooper Rush, their offensive line, even with some injuries, was kind of winning that battle against that, vaunted Eagles defensive front at times tonight. And yeah, I mean, Dak Prescott from Cooper Rush is, newsflash, folks, a massive upgrade once he gets going again and starts playing well. And for Minnesota, they give up 385 passing yards on 9 yards per attempt to a combo of Skylar Thompson and Teddy Bridgewater. I don't know. Every time I watch Minnesota, I want to like them more. I mean, I bet them Erica is going to owe me $100 for them making the playoffs by week 10, but I'm just not a believer as I watch them play.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the NFC is just so terrible.
Right.
And watching Dallas tonight, there was a part of that game where you really did say to yourself, man, like if they come back and somehow beat the Eagles are never coming back from this. This would be a tide-turning game. Of course, they didn't make that happen. But the way that defensive front plays, especially when they are playing someone that is not Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. And here's the way that I would kind of think about the league right now. There are 2 quarterbacks who can win the game by themselves. And that is Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I think Lamar was there for bits and pieces of the season. He can get there, but like consistently, game in, game out. It's those 2. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles have a more complete team, I think, than both those teams. But Jalen Hurts can't quite win the game just by dropping back and passing right now. But there's no one else in the NFC that can actually do that. So it'll be very interesting to see. Ben, let's get you out of here on this. Monday Night Football, we have the Broncos once again. They are 4.5-point underdogs on the road in Los Angeles against the Chargers. When we talked last week, this opened at 6.5. I remember I guessed 4.5. I believe it is 4.5 now.
Yeah.
So you're welcome, everybody. Ben, what are your favorite bets here for this game?
I mean, I don't love a ton, I would say. I know Green Line, of course, we do like Denver. Kind of scary, I would say. I do think that they probably are the correct side when it's all said and done. Like you said, moved up basically from a 6.5-point spread up to 4.5. So I think you're taking anything on, the game markets basically. I do think Denver makes some sense. I don't absolutely love it. I do think we see a little bit more points being scored. We probably should have gotten the over in this, the closing over, I would say, in this Dallas-Philadelphia game on Sunday Night Football, but I do think over 45.5, given, how quickly, Justin Herbert and that Chargers offense can score. I think that's going to get there. I also think a guy like, Cortland Sutton under 4.5 receptions, given some matchup considerations, given his average step to target, everything else, I think that's a pretty good spot. But we're actually, I would say relatively, I guess we're not too light on, we got I just have a filter on right now. We do have quite a few player props in the player props tool if you check it out on pff.com. But I don't know, what do you guys like in this matchup?
I'll jump in. Yeah, I also, now that you mentioned the under reception, I think under Judy receptions, I'm a big Cortland Sutton guy. I was, buying him coming into the season. He's been off to a great start, and Judy just still had some focus drops, had some, moments of just lapses of judgment. Like the under 3.5 receptions, looks like PFF Green Line likes that as well.
I see a sea of orange making it to Los Angeles on Monday night. Look, the Broncos have some injuries. No Randy Gregory. That's going to be a big miss, big loss. Garrett Bowles out as well. But they get Justin Simmons back. That's big. Keenan Allen, I believe, doubtful, Brad, to play.
Not going to play.
Yeah, not going to play here. So a defense that is really good in Denver, I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be a close game. So I'd roll with the Broncos here at 4.5. I just think it's a close, kind of low-scoring game. And then I'm tailing every single Ben Brown player prop. That's what I'm doing. So everyone that is listening, go check it out. You can check out the player props tool, both on the PFF app, which you can download on the App Store by searching PFF. See the best bets for every single game, as well as every piece of betting content that Ben and the rest of the team are putting out. Some really good stuff that people alluded to here. One of our writers, Judah Fort Gang, has been blessing the people with some alt lines. He had the Jets money line and -5.5, which paid out pretty nicely as well. So go download the PFF app or go to pff.com, get yourself a PFF Plus subscription, which you can get for 25% off with promo code FORECAST, FRECAST. Get access to the player props tool and all of PFF's betting predictions on pff.com and the PFF app. Ben, we appreciate you. Thanks so much for hanging out. We will see you next week. Best of luck with all the player props and getting through another Russell Wilson primetime game.
Thank you, guys.
Well, we wait to bring in our friend Arjun, who mopped the floor last week with the bets that we made on this podcast. A reminder that this NFL season, you can still play fantasy football and Underdog Fantasy. Go download the Underdog Fantasy app or go to underdogfantasy.com. What they have for you is a wonderful game called Higher or Lower. You just pick higher or lower on a player's stats. That's basically a player prop. And you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. They keep it super simple. It's very easy to use. Their mobile app is really, really simplistic and intuitive. You pick between 2 and 5 players in your pick'em entry. You get all the picks right, and you take home a bunch of cash. You use promo code PFF when you go to Underdog, and it will double your first deposit up to $100. So go underdogfantasy.com, promo code PFF, or download the Underdog Fantasy app. Also, DraftKings, the NFL action's in full swing here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, they've got you covered. Use promo code PFF when you sign up, and you get $200 in free bets if your team wins when you place a $5 bet on any team. That's really, really about as simple as it gets. $200 in free bets. They're paid out in $25 free bets. And if that's not enough, you can boost your winnings with their stepped up same game parlays. So go to DraftKings Sportsbook right now, either online or download the app, use promo code PFF, and get $200 in free bets when you bet on any team to win, and they make it happen. All right, Arjun, what's up, brother?
What's up, fellas? How we doing?
Not as well as you, apparently.
Right.
This not to mention that you did really well last week, or this week, I should say, but you're also wearing, I mean, we're just sitting here in some basic t-shirts and you look like you're ready for the NBA season and top form. Are you actually a Lakers fan, or do you just like the
Unfortunately, that's how I introduced my fandom to that team, but yeah, have to rep the hometown team.
I'm a Lakers fan as well. I grew up in the Bay Area though, and so that was particularly traumatizing. The only good thing was that the Lakers were actually good when I was growing up. So I didn't have to deal with Russell Westbrook, airballing jump shots from 10 feet out. We promise not to give you any NBA bets on this blessed podcast, but we will guess the lines. Just to recap from last week. So the way that we do this is we go through, we guess what we think the line should be. We then compare it to the actual line, and then we decide whether we're going to bet it, right? If we have a big difference, then we're obviously compelled to go place a bet. The games where the three of us had the biggest cumulative difference from the actual spread, the Giants and the Ravens, it was number one with a bullet. We all liked the Giants, took the Giants. The Giants ended up winning that game outright. The Seahawks and the Cardinals, really great bet that Arjun called out. Seahawks first half, they ended up covering full game as well. And then the other one that I think we mentioned was New Orleans and Cincinnati. Cincinnati ended up coming through. So good job there. We missed on a couple, but only a couple. I think I lost one, Brad lost one, and Arjun, you lost two, but you won 5. So very nice job last week. Let's roll into this week. Buys are Buffalo, Los Angeles, Minnesota, and Philadelphia. Thursday night game is New Orleans and Arizona. Brad, kick us off.
Yeah, I got to pick him here.
Wow. I have Saints +2 here.
Okay. Yeah, I am closer, Arjun. I have Cardinals -2.5. Let me actually, I did not pull these up. Brad, do you have these in front of you?
The actual lines?
Yeah.
Let me get them pulled up here.
This is great podcasting.
It is, but it also shows that we don't cheat, because I actually
no cheating.
Try to be honest about it. I am on a 2-week streak of being closest to the lines, but it hasn't translated actually winning bets, so I'm not sure how much that's worth. All right,
that's the problem, right? You have to have some edges to actually take advantage of.
Got to convert. Yeah. All right. So you guys nailed it. It is Cardinals -1.5.
Okay. Yeah, I see Jeff Sherman, who sets the lines for Superbook Sports, had it as Arizona -2. Brad, you betting? You had it as a pick'em.
Yeah, so I had to pick them because, I mean, the Cardinals scored a field goal today on offense against the worst defense, or one of the worst defenses in all of football. They're atrocious. And the thing is, though, is they're getting DeAndre Hopkins back, and maybe that changes things. Marquise Brown, though, did lead this game with a boot after his interviews. Got hurt, I think it was a foot injury at the end of the game, so he might not play. The reason I'm going to say no to any bet, because Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, I don't know. Marshawn Lattimore, I don't know. Jameis Winston, honestly, I think Andy Dalton might be better at this point. I know that just breaks Eric's heart if he's in the chat still. Anyways, long answer short, I'm not betting either side. I don't know what either of these teams are at all right now.
Yeah, I definitely think this is a good game to stay away from. If anything, it's probably just going to be props and stuff, but it's going to be tough to just see what this Cardinals offense is with D-Hop back in the lineup. And I do feel like the Saints offense kind of overperformed today, dropping like 20+ points on a pretty solid Bengals defense without their top 3 receivers. So, yeah, I'm just laying off this game.
I want nothing to do with this game. The Cardinals might be the biggest frauds on planet Earth. I mean, that team is so terrible. It's shocking to me. It's shocking to me that Cliff Kingsbury is going to continue to coach this team. Someone needs to save Kyler Murray. Now, the only thing that I will say here is that DeAndre Hopkins does come back. right, in this game. I don't know that makes me want to actually bet on Arizona, but when I was making this spread, that was the one thing that came to mind for me was they do look and have looked like a different team without DeAndre Hopkins. In his first game back, though, I'm not like running to bet on them, but something to note. All right, next up, we have Atlanta, who is a cover machine, going to Cincinnati to face the Bengals. Brad.
Yeah. Falcons undefeated ATS. For that reason, I went a little bit lower than I think my actual guess. I had Cincy minus 4.5 in this game.
Okay.
I before I give my pick, I do want to say it's funny that Eric leaves and now the Falcons are the best team at covering our Falcons, right? But I have this at 4.5 as well.
Yes, I where am I here? I have this. Wow, we're all exactly the same. I have Cincinnati minus 4.5.
I'm looking at BetMGM for all these, by the way. The Bengals are minus 6, so we're all a little short there. Arjun, you taking the Falcons?
That's a tough one. I mean, they're undefeated against the spread. Bengals didn't look the greatest today. I have to think about this one. I think I would lean the Falcons for sure. I think a better play, a derivative play would be Falcons like plus 0.5 or Falcons first quarter money line. Arthur Smith absolutely nails with his scripted plays. So Bengals, on the other hand, with Zach Taylor, not as nails with their scripted plays. So, if you don't like the 6 or, you can take their first quarter. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm going to make this an official bet.
You're soft is what it is. You don't have the stones. You're young. You don't have the grit and the intestinal fortitude to ride with the Atlanta Falcons. I understand. And I get that. It can be very, very challenging. I'm going to do it, though. 6 is too many points for this Bengals team. They eked one out today against Andy Dalton. Okay, I don't want to give the New Orleans Saints too much credit. A win in New Orleans where Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are returning home. This is not like a true road game. Beating Andy Dalton, I don't think is that impressive. Meanwhile, I know Atlanta played a banged up San Francisco team, but they're not that bad. Like, these are two average-ish teams. Like, I know that the Bengals are better. I get that. But, like, these are not too great. One of these teams is not a great team. So I'm taking the Falcons plus 6. I also like the first quarter play, though.
I'm taking it as well. So we're hopping on that one together, George.
Okay.
I like the AJ Terrell and Casey Hayward lining up against still not 100% T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. I saw the Bengals today. They lined up in shotgun on 51 of 54 dropbacks. There's just zero creativity from Zach Taylor. I think Dean Pease is a good underrated defensive coordinator for Atlanta. And then you mentioned as well, Arthur Smith. I think. Look, this New Orleans now put up 25-plus points in 3 straight games with Andy Dalton and missing receivers. And I think Smith can also be creative like Pete Carmichael in New Orleans and score on, yes, a talented and a good Bengals defense, but not spectacular by any means. 6 is too many points.
Next up, we have Detroit, Dallas. Brad, what'd you make this one?
I had Dallas minus 5.5. I think it's still a little confusing with Dak. So I will get into that later. But yeah, at 5.5.
Dak will be back for this game, right?
Okay.
That's what I'm.
Yeah,
really
I think someone tweeted it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially after that Cooper Rush performance.
Yeah, I have this as Cowboys minus 6.
I have Cowboys minus 5.5. Let's see. I don't see it on BetMGM. Jeff Sherman at Golf Odds Superbook has this as Dallas minus 7.
I'm trending 6.5, I think.
Yeah, let's call it 6.5. I think that makes more sense. Brad, you betting this one?
No. I mean, Detroit is coming off the bye. They did kind of need the bye. There's a lot of guys that need to get healthy, so it was a timely and helpful thing for them. Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, a lot of different guys probably get back for this game, but it's a stay away from me. I want to see Dak play a week before I do anything related to the Cowboys.
I actually like the lines in this spot coming off a bye. I think defensively they match up pretty well with the Cowboys. I'm not too impressed with the Cowboys like run game at times, and obviously they're giving more carries to the worst running back. And Okuda's been pretty good this season, so I like him to kind of lock up whoever he's on. And then off a bye week, I mean, I think Lions offense gets back on track. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna take them in this spot.
Yeah, I'm with you there as well. And if I can get the 7, I'm taking the 7 now. I don't think it closes 7. A couple of things here. The first is you have Dak coming back, and I'm going to anticipate a little bit of rust there. Just kind of getting the timing back with his receivers. And even though you really do you have to like the Cowboys front, I think that they will struggle with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and him coming back healthy matters quite a bit. So Lions off bye. I will take them if I can get +7, especially. I guess I should have made this 7 so that I can get that extra half point. We'll do that just for the sake. There we go. Indianapolis going to Tennessee to play the Titans. Titans coming off a bye. The Colts coming off of an incredible win. Matt Ryan. That was Matt Ryan's swan song right there. Brad, what'd you make this?
I had Tennessee laying 2 points in this one.
I have Tennessee -1.5.
Wow. Okay. I'm heavy here. I have Tennessee -3 in this one.
It's not on BetMGM that I see.
Okay, let's look here. I am seeing, where's this? I'm seeing Tennessee -2.
Okay.
Tennessee -2. I guess Brad, what are you doing with this one if it's Tennessee?
Yeah, as someone who kind of was fading the Titans coming into the season, I don't hate this spot. I mean, the Colts, they did put up a lot of yards today, but I still wasn't super impressed with them today against Jacksonville. I think Michael Pittman is just better than any corner the Jaguars could throw out there. And then Travon Walker kind of had a rookie game at a dumb penalty, had a couple bad reps. It wasn't really an impressive win. They easily could have lost that game. Titans off a bye, I like Mike Vrabel off a bye. I'm probably taking Titans here under a field goal.
Okay, this is a tough one. I think it's going to be a double-edged sword because I love the Titans first quarter. Like, I know we're supposed to be talking about full game spreads and stuff, but the Titans through 6 weeks have the number 1 offense on scripted plays. Like, Todd Downing is an absolute wizard in the first 15 plays of a game, and then he turns into Cliff Kingsbury the rest of the way. So, I would take Titans first quarter money line -1 at like +130, -2.5 at like +150. And then once they get their quick 7 or 10 points from their scripted plays, I would look to live bet the Colts. But my official play from this game would probably be Titans first quarter money line.
Yeah, I'm not going to bet the full game here, even though if I had to, I would take Titans at less than 3. I like that first quarter move, especially coming off of a bye where they've had a couple of weeks to think about a very important divisional game. Yeah, I don't know. The Titans' whole game are tricky because at some point you may have to rely on Ryan Tannehill dropping back to pass, and that scares me quite a bit. That's not particularly great. Green Bay goes to Washington to play the Commanders. Why are we still seeing Carson Wentz is my big question. Brad, I think we have to assume that Wentz is still playing after Ron Rivera got up and said that it was his decision to bring him in. Would you make this one?
I'm not 100% sure of that real quick. I don't know if he's going to. So he fractured a finger. I think it's his ring finger on his throwing hand. It also is a convenient excuse just because he's been cheeks to just say that you're not playing him because of the injury. I'm not 100% he's going to play in this game, but nevertheless, I had Washington plus 5.5.
Wow. I had Washington plus 7.
Whoa. Wow. I did not get quite that far out. I had Washington plus 5. And I was hedging a little bit. I thought that maybe there was a chance that Howell came in and played in this game. And I actually think I'd be more confident in them if they actually had Howell in there. But here's the thing. Green Bay is not very good. So I don't know. I didn't want to give them a full touchdown. Brad, what are you doing with this one?
Yeah, so we talked about before the show. Like, is there any team in the entire NFC conference that should be laying a touchdown or close to it on the road? No, I don't care if it's the Bucks at Pittsburgh, like we saw today. Who's 31st and early down EP per play and still managed to win that game. So,
by the way, I'm seeing 5 here.
I see 4.5 for on BetMGM. So, yeah, underneath all of us, which is interesting. I guess Aaron Rodgers also dealing with a thumb injury. I didn't watch that entire game. I don't know if it was like visible and he was shaking the whole time. But anyway, I would look into Green Bay. I would wait a little bit to see the Washington quarterback situation. They get the mini bye coming off the worst Thursday Night Football in a week. I'm staying away for now. But if anything, it would be Green Bay based on how injuries shake out.
I think I would bet Green Bay in this situation. Commanders were the worst team in that Thursday night matchup. Bears drove the ball into the red zone like 3 times, came away with 0 points. Their defense isn't that good. I have really no faith in their offense now, especially without Wentz. So I like the Packers in this spot.
Packers get right game. Tampa Bay, Carolina. Good God, Carolina's awful. Brad, what'd you make this?
I had Carolina plus 9.5.
I had Carolina plus 9.
I have Carolina plus 9.5 as well, and I don't know if that's steep enough because, my God, they look terrible. It is minus 10.
I see 10.5 on BetMGM. So yeah, we're all under it again. Again, it's the same principle. Like, are the Bucks good enough to be laying 10 or 10 plus points on the road against anyone? Maybe Carolina, like we talked about, did not completed one pass beyond the line of scrimmage, and it was about a yard beyond the line of scrimmage at that. Is this going to be a Jacob Eason game? Is it going to be a less than 100% Baker Mayfield game? Who knows? I can't trust this Bucks team to lay 10 points on the road.
Brad kind of hit the nail on the head. The fact that they couldn't score, the fact that Tom Brady was struggling in the red zone with the Steelers' top 3 cornerbacks all out, and their 4th guy, Arthur Mollett, showed up as the worst cornerback or the worst player in their defense per me and Judah's successful coverage over expected metric. And the fact that with Evans, Godwin, and Gage all playing, he couldn't, you couldn't score touchdowns, and you couldn't go over his 2.5 prop, which was, I thought, a slam dunk at the time.
Yeah, my God. It's that was one of the more maddening games that I have watched. I mean, it looked as if they were running like a play that the Steelers were calling for them every time that they were in the red zone. It was brutal. I'm not betting on the Carolina Panthers here, and I just have not seen anything out of the Bucs to make me think that they're going to blow anybody out. So as much as I want to fade the Carolina Panthers, I'm and Steve Wilkes here. I'm going to not bet this one either. All right, we go to Giants Jaguars in Jacksonville.
I got the Jaguars laying 1.5 points.
I
have this as a pick, but I think I'm going to be off.
I have Jags minus a full 3 in this game, which
that's bullseye according to BetMGM for you, George.
Yeah, I'll just say really quickly, I think that I was going to make it 2.5, and then I thought about, a little warmer weather down in Florida, the Giants offense maybe not being as great as the win-loss record was. But Brad, what are you doing with this one? Are you going to bet the Giants?
Maybe. The Jaguars, we talked about this earlier. The Jaguars are still top 10 in early down EPA per play, removing garbage time. The Giants, like you said, are not even on that list at all. But obviously, just not some good performances. Trevor Lawrence was bad again today. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, but just did not impress through the air. If I was going to bet it, I'd probably take the Giants getting the full field goal before it goes underneath the full field goal, which I expect it to. But again, a 5-1 team, catching a field goal at a 2-4 Jaguars team, it kind of says a lot.
I think the Giants are probably going to be due for some regression soon. I just don't know when. They're completely overperforming the talent they have on the roster, and that just goes to show how well they've been coached and the culture of the organization. But I just can't bring myself to bet on Daniel Jones, especially on the road. And yeah, I mean, Jags just losing 3 straight. They're probably due for a bounce back game soon, but yeah, I think I'm going to lay off this one.
Yeah, it's I would say that the Giants are a teaser leg if this is 2.5 at some point, and you're looking for a teaser leg. I'm not sure that I would feel strongly about either side. Just at -3. Cleveland, Baltimore. This is in Baltimore. Brad, would you make this?
Ravens -5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have Ravens as -5 as well.
You guys are a little heavier than me. I have Baltimore -3.5. And let's see, Brad, what do you see?
I got 6. Baltimore -6 on BetMGM.
Whoa.
That is, yeah. So I'll jump in. That's a ton of points. I've said this too many times, and it's looked dumb the last 2 weeks in a row. I bet the Cleveland Browns a ton. I might go back to the Cleveland Browns. Well, 6 points is a lot of points. Baltimore is, though, second right now in early down EPA per play, removing garbage time. I was surprised to see that. Philadelphia stayed ahead of them throughout the night tonight. So they are just losing games at the end of the game. They've had, I think, 90-plus win probability at some point in all of their losses so far this year. Today was kind of just a comedy of errors and just, the fluky, weird fumble that turned to an interception for Lamar Jackson, who just kind of couldn't close the game out again. I don't know if they should be laying 6 points, right now against this, a Cleveland team that cannot play defense, dead last in EPA per play on defense, but has still kind of continued to move the ball well outside of today.
I'm definitely staying away from this one. The Browns defense can't stop anyone. They let Bailey Zappi put on a clinic, 300-plus yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, I don't know who could have seen that coming. And I think the Lamar Jackson MVP campaign has kind of tailed off a little bit. Having no Bateman obviously hurts, and I don't know if he's going to be back for this game. But I mean, 6 points for a divisional matchup where the Browns offense could put up 30 any given Sunday, I think is a lot of points. So I would lean Browns for sure, but I'm not going to make that an official play.
I think I have to out of principle. This is just another one of those situations where both these teams are decent. Neither is that great. 6 points is just too many. And I will go ahead. The Browns defense has looked as bad as the numbers show. I mean, it looks atrocious. But defense is an unstable metric, and I'm going to go ahead and fade them continuing to be that terrible. They do have some talent on that team. Myles Garrett was back today. Last week we sat here talking about how the Seahawks defense was the worst thing that anyone had ever seen on a football field. And, they played great today. So granted against Cliff Kingsbury. So, I think it's a week-to-week league, fellas. And I'm going to back the Browns, which it means it's going to go terribly. Every time I back the Browns,
with you.
Every time I back the Browns, it makes so much sense. And then you get to the game and you see one picture post on social media of Browns fans making fun of the Deshaun Watson situation. You're like, why did I do this? I'm just asking for pain here.
We're fading the Ravens 3 weeks in a row, I realized, George. You and I we're fading the Ravens these days.
Yeah, although last week it worked well.
2 weeks, yeah.
Ravens defense, I think is similar in the sense that they have been nowhere near as good as one would expect so far this year. So, and I think that, I expected Jacoby Brissett to be confused by Bill Belichick. That didn't surprise me at all. So I like buying them at the bottom of the market here. Jets and Broncos. This one is in Denver. This begins the 1 p.m. slate. Brad, would you make this?
I had Denver laying 2.5.
Okay. Look at that respect for the Jets.
I had you had Jets -2.5 or plus?
No,
2.5?
Denver -2.5 at home.
Okay. Yeah, I had Denver -1.
Wow. I guess I really do. This is proving that I'm a Jets hater, even though I'm not a Jets hater. I have the Broncos by a field goal in this one.
I don't know if that one's going to be posted anywhere, obviously, because Denver plays tonight. So you see it
Denver plays tonight.
I'm seeing Denver minus 3.5 on FanDuel, even though that's probably not the book I should be using, but 3.5.
I see -3, -120. So
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, interestingly, and again, I don't know how you guys do this throughout the day, but I guess the lines for the first time before the games are played, and then as the games are happening, I'm in there kind of like adjusting, one way or another. I had Denver -4 to start, and went down to 3.5. It was at 3.5 for most of the day. And as I was doing kind of my final look over all of these, it's like, you know what? Like, I don't know what Denver's going to do tomorrow, but the Jets, the Jets defense is for real. They have a lot of players on offense, like by all means, like more cohesive than the Broncos are right now. Pulled it all the way down to 3, but I do think 3.5 makes sense. Like just given what these teams look like on paper. Brad, what are you doing with this one?
I'm going to take the Jets. I'm going to put it down. Maybe I'm a believer. I'm buying. I'm unlike you. Well, we have a Jets supporter and a non-Jet supporter on the pod. But yeah, I mean, I think the Jets defense is very for real. I think Quinnen Williams is going to dominate Lloyd Cushenberry. I know Dalton Risner might not play now this week and next week. Their guard is a pretty good player. Obviously, Garrett Bowles is out. And then I just like, you get Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed on Judy and Cortland Sutton. And then there's really not playmakers outside of those guys on Denver. And then on the flip side with the Jets, the Denver defense is legit. There's no question about it. A good pass rush. But I think because we have so many options, I mean, look, Elijah Moore didn't have a target today, and the Jets still scored 27 points on the road in Green Bay. I just think being able to spread the football around is how you beat this Denver team. I think the reason why they killed or the Colts couldn't do anything is because it was just Pittman and no one, and they just put Pat Surtain a lot of the time on Pittman. And Indy kind of couldn't get around that. So I just think it's a good matchup in a lot of different ways for the Jets. So I will be taking the gangrene.
Look at you.
I'm totally with you right there, Brad. I think the funny thing, like when I was guessing the line for this, I feel like these teams are really, really similar. You have two below average quarterbacks with an average O-line. I would say maybe Broncos are below average without Garrett Bowles. A pretty talented wide receiver room on both sides of the ball, a lockdown corner who can kind of just take away one side of the field, a pretty good pass rush on both sides of the ball, and I would say Jets are a little bit better. And that's kind of the reason I'm going to take the Jets here, because I think, especially in the trenches, we've seen Russell Wilson succumb to pressure just like he did against the Colts. And DeForest Buckner had himself a night on Thursday night last week. Quinnen Williams has been having an absolutely monster season. I think he's on a 4-game streak of at least a half sack. And, I think before last week, I would have thought the Broncos were the better team, but Russ can't be too high. We've seen that. And now he can't beat single high against Gus Bradley, his former defensive coordinator. And how he's going up against a Gus Bradley disciple, our brother in Vishnu, Robert Salah. And, I don't think he's going to have much success, especially in a game where, like, I think the Jets are going to be, or the Broncos are going to be playing off a short week after Monday night. So definitely backing the Jets. And I mean, I think our boy Judah is probably going to write up some alt lines for this one.
I'm taking the Jets as well because first off, I want to root for the Jets after reading my DMs this week. I'm very excited about it. And I agree. I agree a lot. Like, these teams are not all of that different, despite the fact that one is paying their quarterback like $220 million, $225 million more than the other. And by the way, I was doing some Zach Wilson research today, and he does officially have a new girlfriend. Hard to tell the difference between her and his old girlfriend, but it is a fact. I did some research, and so I'm riding with the happily not married couple. By the way, if you search Zach Wilson new girlfriend on Google, the number one result is people begging him to date Gisele Bundchen, which I think is pretty funny. Seattle. Yeah. Seattle and the Chargers. Seahawks Chargers. This one is in Los Angeles. Brad, would you make this?
I had Chargers -7.5.
I have Chargers -7.
Right. I had wow, you guys hate the Seahawks. I had Chargers -4.5.
Wow. I will
Oh,
say
wow.
Keenan Allen's going to come back next week against the Seahawks. I know Kyler Murray couldn't really take advantage of a bad Seahawks secondary, but I think Justin Herbert will kind of like have one of his best games of the year. No bias here, but legitimately, I think he'll be able to take advantage of a pretty bad secondary with a pass rush, which isn't like all too intimidating. So I'm not saying I like the Chargers in this spot. I think 7's a lot of points, and Chargers are typically known to let a lot of backdoor covers come in, as we've seen in the past. But I think 7's the right number if that's the actual number.
I think I'm seeing six
Not
and a
on,
half here. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I see 6.5.
Okay.
I made this one 4.5. Again, I think the Seahawks are like a legitimately good team. And I think these are both two average teams in the NFL in the year of our Lord 2020. And for that reason, there shouldn't be that big of a spread, especially in Los Angeles, where like rich people in Seattle will be able to travel just fine. Should be plenty of Seattle Seahawks fans in LA. So I made it 4.5. Brad, what are you doing with this one?
Yeah, that's a good point. They never have home games in LA. The Rams had to do a silent count their last game at home. So that's a fair point. I mean, so I went over a touchdown and gave him the hook. It kind of like you said, I usually don't do this, but I did this assuming the Chargers are going to look good, beat the Broncos, maybe have some buzz, and then maybe it'll get bet under or to a touchdown. If it's below a touchdown, I'm probably taking the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree. So if it drops to like 6.5 or 6, I think I'll take the Chargers here.
Look at you guys. I'm rolling with Gino. Jeans. I'm going to take the Seahawks once again. Rick Woolen, by the way, looks like Richard Sherman. Literally, just like popped out 10 years later, 12 years later. It's amazing how I think corner. Yeah, I guess you could say this about a lot of different positions, maybe besides quarterback, but it always shocks me. You see a guy like Tariq Woolen who's 6'3", runs a 4.3, 6'4", runs a 4.3. And guy gets picked up at pick 153, and you then watch him play, and you're like, oh my god, like how the hell did this guy last this long? I think one of the things that I always I kind of chalk this up to is there's so many players in the NFL draft. There's just so many, and law of large numbers, like you're bound to let a few just kind of slip through the cracks. I know that's not actually what the law of large numbers says, but there's just so many players that there's a few that are going to slip through the cracks, and the scheme in which they play matters. And every once in a while you get a player who, through the evaluation process, he doesn't check all of the boxes in terms of what every coach wants, but for one particular scheme, and in this case, the Seahawks scheme, it works out really, really well. And for that reason, I mean, he should be up there for Defensive Rookie of the Year. So I'll ride with the Seahawks. Houston and Vegas. This is in Las Vegas. Brad, would you make this?
At Vegas land a full tutty.
You.
Wow. Okay, I have Raiders -5.5.
Yeah, I'm even lower than that. I have Raiders -5.
I see 6.5 shaded towards that at -115 on BetMGM.
What are you doing with that, Brad?
So Raiders come off a bye, barely lost to the Chiefs. They played well in that game, started to play like a real football team. I mean, they're at a point now where it's do or die. They're 1-4. I think it's like a situation where, and yes, this is more narrative than maybe, numbers, but they've just been stewing on it the entire bye week and all that. They're going to come out and beat the Texans by 30. I will lay 6.5 with the Raiders comfortably.
Man, I don't want to bet the Texans at all. I betting on bad quarterbacks is very tough. But like I think there's variables that do line up here. Like Derek Stingley's been awesome to start the year, and if they're able to put him on Devontae, put Pittry on Hunter Renfrow. I mean, I don't really know the status of Darren Waller going into next week, but that's tough. I think I'm gonna just lay off 5.5. If it maybe gets out to like 7.5 or something, Yeah, I'm gonna lay off. I'm gonna lay off it at 7 or 6.5. If it gets out to 7.5, I think I'll take the Texans here.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Davis Mills on the road scares me, even though this should not be. Like the strengths of these teams, you compare them, it shouldn't be this big. Then you think about Davis Mills and like Lovie Smith on the road. Yeah. So I'm going to pass as well. Kansas City, San Francisco, Super Bowl rematch in San Francisco. Brad, would you make this?
I had the Niners catching a full field goal at home.
I have Chiefs minus 3.5.
I'm the same as you, Arjun. The Niners plus 3.5 at home. Interesting. Brad, what are you seeing on BetMGM? Because I see Superbook at Chiefs minus 2.5.
So BetMGM is Chiefs minus 3.
Okay, let's call
and
it
flat both sides. Yeah.
What are you doing with that?
This might be a stay away for me. This is interesting. I think this is the correct spread. I just figured it was going to land right on the field goal there. Look, the Niners coming in today didn't have Bosa, didn't have Eric Armstead, didn't have Jimmy Ward. During the game, they lost several more players. I don't know the status of all those guys, but if they can't get home with their front four based on injuries, then I think it could be ugly. If all those guys come back, I think Bosa should be able to play. Then I think they could, kind of limit Kansas City just like Buffalo did today. So there's too many questions for me, but I also just think it's a correct spread. So it's a stay away for me.
I do think it's the correct spread also. I would lean the Chiefs, but I think a better play is probably the over here. Charvarius Ward is one of the players that left that Brad was kind of referring to. That's a big one. Mosley and Ward are like the two guys, and they've been playing very, very well this year. Mm-hmm. The one thing going for the Niners, they do have the tight end erasers in Hufanga and Fred Warner. So, Kelsey might not be as effective as he was today going up against Neal. I think the backup safety from the
Neal for the Bills. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the total's at 47 right now. Chiefs have a pretty bad defense. Bills should have hung at least 31. I think, Kevin Cole's adjusted scores, they'll probably show up in the 30s, 2 red zone trips ending in, 0 points is obviously going to affect that. So I like the over here. I'm not really sure how I feel about a full field goal.
Yeah, I can't bet it either. I think field goal feels right. If I had to take one side, I would go Kansas City, just because the Niners have so many injuries. And right now, I don't know, but I would actually wait to kind of see how those injuries play out and what the line moves there. This is an interesting Sunday night game. Pittsburgh, Miami. Tua back for this game. It looks, actually, I guess it doesn't look, but one might assume that it will be Mitch Trubisky, given that Kenny Pickett left with a concussion and how careful everyone is kind of needing to be, especially with the added scrutiny. Obviously, in general, people should be careful with concussions. But I guess my take would be that Trubisky is likely to play in this one. Brad, do you know otherwise? / what would you make the spread?
I guess would be you're correct there, especially because, not to get cynical, but Miami being the team that's kind of dealing with keeping guys out for longer than maybe they would like to. If then a rookie got rushed back into a game dealing with the same issue, I'm sure, anyway, let's avoid that conversation.
On Sunday night too,
Yeah. Also, interesting was a nice word for you to use there. I can think of some other adjectives besides the word interesting. But anyway, Tua should be back. I think it will be Miami. I had it Miami minus 6.
I had Miami minus 7, assuming Tua's back.
Both of you guys a little heavier than me. I had Miami minus 5.5 in this one.
So I'm seeing 6.5 on BetMGM. So pretty much where we all had it. I think it's interesting. So one of the biggest edges for Miami early in the season, it happened today, it was pretty funny, is the heat down in South Florida. Today on the sideline, the Vikings sideline was 120 degrees on the field. Miami's in the shade was 90 degrees. There's a 30-degree difference on the sidelines. And it wears down opposing defenses. We saw it today with the Vikings, giving up 9 yards per attempt to Skylar Thompson and Teddy Bridgewater, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. kind of ran roughshod, although Waddle kind of lost the game for Miami. Had a big fumble, and the interception on Teddy was Waddle's fault as well. Long answer short, though, like I said earlier, Pittsburgh is 31st right now in an early down EPA per play with garbage time removed. Just an awful team, and they converted 5 3rd and 10 pluses today against the Bucs defense. Just so many kind of things that are not sustainable. I would consider betting Miami here.
I would consider them too. I love the Dolphins in the teaser leg though. I'm not gonna lie. Like I have a hard time finding them losing this game, especially if the Steelers don't have their top 3 corners and or Minkah Fitzpatrick again. I mean, Tyreek and Waddle are gonna go crazy in that game.
Yeah, I guess if that's the case, if those guys are not there, then I would be tempted to ride with Miami as well. Especially coming, I would like to sell Pittsburgh after the type of win that they had against Tampa Bay, where they just continually converted long 3rd downs. They managed to keep Tampa Bay out of the end zone after they continually got inside the 10-yard line. But I'll lay off it until I know otherwise. Close it out Monday night, Chicago. Justin Fields goes to New England to play the Patriots. Brad, would you make this?
Yeah, so Bailey Zappi's the best quarterback playing in primetime next week. That's a wild statement to say in week 6, but I think I believe it, or week 7. I had the New England laying a full 8 points.
I had Patriots minus 7.5.
I'm going to be the heaviest here. I have New England minus 8.5. What are you seeing, Brad?
BetMGM has Patriots minus 7.5. So we'll go right back to you, George.
I think I'm going to take the Patriots here. And, I know the whole Bill Belichick struggles against running quarterbacks narrative, and maybe we'll hear that from people this week. Against a guy in Justin Fields who is clearly like second guessing some stuff, is not comfortable with things. This to me could be really ugly. If New England is up and Chicago has to throw the ball, like, I don't know, man. There's all these pictures of Justin Fields looking super down about that loss to Washington. I hesitate to see what he would look like after this game. So, you're not getting a fantastic number here, but I think I will take the Patriots.
Yeah, I agree with you 110%. Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts. I think Justin Fields will be seeing some ghosts as well in New England, no question. Plus, also, Bailey Zappi now, 24 points against the Packers, 29 against the Lions, 38 against the Browns. Shout out Matt Patricia. Let's give the man his flowers. I wish Tage was here for that one. But
put the flower in
New England too. Yeah, they were fun today. Like Tyquan Thornton is now getting involved. He had a couple of goal line targets. They clearly like him a lot as a young player. This Bears defense has kind of held up better than I expected coming into the season, but they cannot generate a pass rush, and I think that's the one thing maybe you could throw off a Zappi, or honestly, I guess it could be Mac Jones. But I think the Patriots could win this game like 24-0 at home. I'm probably taking New England as well.
Yeah, I like New England in this game. I think the angle, like Belichick struggles versus mobile quarterbacks, I think there's also a flip side, like young, mostly rookie quarterbacks struggle versus Bill Belichick. And, if Belichick comes out in his cover 1 stuff and his cover 3 stuff where, we're kind of reliant on the Bears receivers to get open, I think that's a recipe for disaster. I remember there's one play, I was watching it with our boy Dave Alfaro and Tage in Ann Arbor, and Fields was scrambling for at least 6 seconds on a play, and literally no one had at least a yard of separation. Like, no one knows how to get open, even when the play breaks down. And so, you're kind of relying on Fields to do all the work after he breaks the pocket, which means, scrambling in those type of situations. But I mean, Bill Belichick, I think, has done a great job this season. He's kept games that he shouldn't be in close. And, I really like the Browns this weekend, and that kind of burned me. So I feel comfortable backing Bill Belichick at home against a pretty weak Bears team.
That is the week 7 slate. God, I gotta say, man, there have been some shoddy slates. Hopefully we have some winners coming up for us. It's tough when you take Buffalo and Philly out. They're on byes this week. Like, really looks pretty bleak. But that is why betting is here to save us. As usual, we will write up our favorite spread picks. You can find those on the PFF app and PFF.com. I think we all have around like 4 to 5 bets. Kind of real quick, guys, to close this out. Ones that you like the most, Brad.
Yeah, I like Atlanta a lot. And I'll go with I'll go with the Jets too. I like Atlanta and the Jets a good amount.
There you go. What about you, Arjun?
Yeah, I'm with Brad. I like the Jets next week, and I think Titans first quarter is gonna be one of my heavier plays of the week when that line comes out.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit as well. I'm with you, Brad, on Atlanta. Certainly. A couple that I'm off by a decent amount, like Cleveland +6 in Baltimore. Just feels like a lot of points. I think they, again, similar, I think, actually, to the Giants-Baltimore game, where you're like, man, the spread is 6, but either team could win. Just feels a little off. And I like Seattle getting 6.5 in Los Angeles against the Chargers. I will take that. And interestingly, I also feel pretty good about Belichick against Fields. So we'll align on Slack. We'll write these up. You guys can check them out. Thank you guys for hanging out. We love you all. And we'll see you on Wednesday night. Peace.